Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to another edition of Just a Plant Room. So today I want to talk about the divas of the plant community. As you can see on my table, we're going to talk about prayer plants, or we call them all prayer plants, but in actuality they aren't. So if you like this type of content, stick around. All right, guys, like I mentioned, I wanted to talk a little bit about the divas of the plant community. My gosh, I see posts every day where folks are struggling with these types of plants. The thing is that, we don't use their scientific names and we refer to them all as prayer plants. But in essence, they really aren't. They're all part of the, let's see if I can get this name right, the Marantaceae family, which encompasses all of these. That would be the Maranta, the Calathea, and the Stromanthe. But they're a little different. So let's talk about the differences. And I've got some notes, because if not, I couldn't remember everything that I wanted to tell you today. These two are Marantas. Let's see if I can drag. So Marantas typically have round leaves, and they display colors. And these are the true type of prayer plants. These will grow, when they grow, they do close their leaves at night all the way. I think it's referred to like circadian rhythm. It's basically they know when it's day and night and they close their leaves. The difference between these two is this one has, this particular Maranta has a wide growth. She doesn't grow bushy. She likes to grow long. It would potentially be better in a hanging basket. I don't have her in that as of yet, but since I got her, she's put out quite a few leaves, and I do notice that she likes to spread out. And you can see she's been flowering for me. I've been snipping them off, but as quick as I snip them, she brings me more. Now this one, I can't talk to or speak to a lot. I just showed you guys this plant. This was one of the plants I just got this past week. This is called the Maranta Beauty Kim. I haven't had her long enough to really tell you how she's going to behave. She did get stuck in shipping for a little while. That accounts for the crispiness on the leaves and some of the growth points, it suffered because it was hot and she got here 2 days late. But other than that, she seems to be acclimating pretty well. When I got her, obviously I did give her a bath just to make sure there were no pests, but she is in the plant room now. And these are the two Marantas that I have. Now let's look at the Calatheas. Let me move these guys just so we can have a better. So this guy lives on this shelf in this corner for now. And this little guy has taken up residence over here for now. So let's take a look at the Calatheas. Now the Calatheas, very similar. They do have some range of motion, but their range of motion is more so looking for the light. Now I have noticed, and in my research, I saw where they said Calatheas don't close their leaves at night, but I think that might have to do with the type of Calathea. So this little guy right here, cute as a button. This is called, let me pull it out just to be sure I get that name right. It's an amigris, Calathea amigris. And I don't know if you can see the back side of the leaves. They have that purple blush to them. And this one is really cute. The leaves are super small, but it has the detail like most Calatheas on the leaves. And that's what makes it so pretty to me. When the leaves come out brand new, they have a dark purple blush on the back of them. And as the leaves mature, that blush starts to fade out and it's not as rich or as dark as when it first emerges. This is another one that's super popular. I think this one is called the Oribata, something along those lines. Now, I got this one from Pike Nurseries. I wanted to try this one because I thought the leaves were absolutely gorgeous. And when they're a full specimen, the leaves can get very huge. It's one of those plants that, you know, you're drawn to just because of the leaves. I think that's the case with all calatheas. We get sucked in because of the leaf color and pattern. These two have been with me the longest. So this one, I am going to butcher this name. This one is a Mycoliana Boomy. We'll put it up on the screen. I actually got this one on Amazon. Can you believe that? I took a chance and bought a plant on Amazon. But when I first got this one, it was the first one I got, and I had absolutely no clue what the heck I was doing. She lived in the bathroom for a little while because I thought the moisture, this, that, and the third, but that actually did not work out for her. And again, it is that striking pattern on the leaves. It's just gorgeous. And again, that's what sucks us in. She is not difficult to grow once you get the hang of it, and we're going to touch on that in a minute. And the grow tips that I have actually apply to all of these plants. Now, this is a Calathea rubibarba, and sometimes I've heard it referred to as the fuzzy something or other. Now, you might be saying she is leaning horribly. But no matter which way I turn her, she decides this is the way she wants to lean. Now, these two, they say calatheas don't close their leaves, but these two in the evening, I do see where their leaves come up, just like the prayer plant, and they do somewhat close themselves up. This one is very unique because the leaves are, I think the right word is pubescent. They have like a little furry texture to them. And the one thing that I've noticed about calatheas in general is that on the back side of the leaves, they all tend to have this purple coloration. So I'm gonna turn this old girl around so you could see her. The back of the leaves are purple, and this one is really cool. But the sensation when you touch her, it's really odd because it's really furry. I don't know if you can zoom in and show you the hairs on here, but if he can, that's what the leaves feel like. So if you can, and it's not prickly, it's very soft, but it has that same texture on the leaves, a little shorter. Very cool plants. So let's move these four little puppies this way, and let's talk a little bit about the Stromanthe. Now, these guys are referred to as tricolor. I guess this would be the real tricolor, not sure, but there's two versions of this plant. There's this one that has all the beautiful like pinkish and green and cream, and then there's this one, which I've had longer, that's the plain green. Now, what you'll notice is that both of them have the same leaf shape. They both have, you know, the purple color on the back. But what I've found in my care is that this one is easier to care for. She is the longest one that I've had. This one I picked up at Pike's maybe, I want to say 5-6 months ago. It's been doing pretty good. It lives here in the plant room on that shelf right there. So it's getting overhead light, bright light, and it seems to be acclimating well there. I had her in a different spot and she didn't seem to like that. I think the cluster of the plants together gives her that humidity level that she's looking for. Since I've touched on humidity, let's talk a little bit about the care for these plants. So granted, I am not an expert on these plants. Absolutely not. They are still divas and they require a lot of patience, but I think once you figure it out, you'll do okay. So for me, in my experience, putting them in a self-watering pot, like I've got these guys, has been the best thing that I've ever done, because if you look at the care instructions, they tell you that she wants to remain moist, but not wet. What is that? How do you keep something moist and not wet? I don't know. But in this type of situation setup, what I've come to learn is I water her, when they're in these self-watering pots, I water her when there's nothing in the reservoir and I can feel that she's gone dry about an inch down. I water her thoroughly and I let the water fill the reservoir, and then I don't water her again until she's used all of the water in the reservoir and the topsoil becomes dry. So that's my version of keeping it moist and not wet. Go figure. But it seems to be working. This plant has never been happier since I've put her in this type of situation. My goal is to put these two guys in the same type of setup so that they can prosper as well. Although they seem to be doing fairly well just being in the regular pot, but I find myself consistently having to check to make sure that they're not dry. And with all the plants that I have, that's just one layer that I can remove by putting them in self-watering pots. The other thing I'd like to bring up is the lighting condition. So I typically buy my plants and do the research later. Don't do that. Research first. But at the end of the day, if you do some research, they'll tell you that these plants can do well in low light. That's not been my experience. My experience has been that they prefer to be in a situation where the light is bright, but not direct. So when we talk about grow lights and things of that nature, most of these plants are under some type of grow light, but you have to remember they come in different wattages, right? And the further they are from the grow light is how you would determine whether they're getting bright and direct light. So all of these guys are under some type of grow light. I don't have enough natural light to give them, so I supplement that. And they seem to enjoy that. I think that they prefer to be in something that's a little bit brighter, not necessarily low light. So I would, if you have one and it's struggling, those are some of the things that you should consider. Do you have her in a situation where she's staying moist? Is she getting the correct type of light? As far as fertilization, I fertilize these plants like I do all my other plants, weekly. If they are growing, then they get fertilized. If I notice that they've gone a little dormant, then I don't fertilize. The soil. So because they like to stay moist, I don't use my aeroid mix. For these guys, what I do when I repot them is I use the cocoa peat, and I do add a little bit of perlite, and I might add a little bit of orchid bark, because at the end of the day, you want them to retain moisture. And I find that that type of mix for me works well, at least with these guys. Now, as far as pests are concerned, absolutely pest magnets, specifically the spider mites. So when these guys get watered, I check them all the time. And even if they don't have anything on them, what I do is rather than drench them with an insecticidal soap, I take and I wet a paper towel and I wipe their leaves down front and back just to make sure. I think that because their foliage is so sensitive, I'm a little leery to actually spray anything on them. Worst case scenario, I would wash them down with just some water and then wipe their leaves and then apply some type of pest repellent to keep them pest free. Now, one of the things that I do see a lot is online specifically is that people struggle because the plant goes wilty. In my experience, when they've gone wilty or the leaves have curled, and this one is notorious for doing that, curling the leaves in and looking all dramatic like she's dying, it's because I've taken too long to water her. That's why I think that having them in the self-watering pots are a little bit better. She's not in one. I think she should be. But the wilting leaves and or curling of the leaves could be a sign of underwatering. Now, on the flip side, if you get yellow leaves, that could be a sign of overwatering. Now, with this plant, it's difficult to tell whether you're overwatering it because it wants to stay moist. So how do you know? It's hard. Again, that's why I say the self-watering pots. Water her once, let her use what's in the reservoir, let her go dry a little bit, then water her one more time. That way you avoid the overwatering, underwatering. She stays in that happy medium of her space of being consistently moist. One more thing I want to touch on, leaf spots. So these plants, all of them, whether it's a Calathea, Maranta, Stromanthe, it doesn't matter. They all want to have that little bit of extra humidity. So regular household humidity might be okay, but in my experience, I found that either having them clustered or running a humidifier is actually best. So like with this plant, I can show you where her leaves are going crispy on the end. I think that is for lack of humidity. Now, if you get spots on the leaves, you know, like I don't have one that has that, but if you were to get like those ring spots, we should all know by now that those spots with the rings typically indicate some type of fungal infection. At that point, you need to treat it with some type of copper fungicide or something along those lines. But for the most part, yes, they are divas. But if you can find that happy medium of keeping that soil moist but not wet, and finding them a location where it's bright but not in direct sun, you should be able to grow this. I didn't realize I had so many of them in my collection. And granted, I don't have the secret sauce. I think I'm still learning what that secret sauce is, self-watering pots. I have 2 in my collection that are not doing well. No matter what I do for them, they just refuse to be happy. But I haven't given up yet. They're a work in progress. I will find where their happy spot is and continue to work with them to see if I can get them to grow. I may show you those at another opportunity. They weren't in the pretty class, so they didn't get to show up on the table today. But oh, one more other thing. I wanted to tell you guys one more other thing. That is not good English. One more thing I wanted to tell you. Distilled water. Everybody says water these guys with distilled water because of the mineral buildup that can cause other issues that you probably don't want to deal with. Look, distilled water is expensive. I'm not going to be buying gallons of distilled water for these guys. You could potentially, leave water sitting out. People tend to believe that if you do that, the chemicals will evaporate. I don't know how that's possible. The chemicals are in the water. Do they really evaporate? Maybe. I'm not a scientist, so I can't really tell you that. But these guys get watered with the same water everybody else gets. I'm sorry. He's giving me sign language. Say what you gonna say. I don't even use that all the time. So what my husband was trying to tell me is I have a Brita pitcher that we no longer use because we get the water, our refrigerator has, the filtration in it. Sometimes when I remember, I'll fill that and use that to water these guys. But I gotta tell you, that's not always. When I'm in the midst of watering everybody, they might get, the only ones that get that water are my begonias. Other than that, these guys get regular water like everybody else. I don't have time to be distinguishing between filtered, distilled, and all that. They have to acclimate, It's like everything. When you bring a tropical plant into your home, they're used to greenhouse conditions and things of that nature, and you have to acclimate them so that they can get used to what you do. These plants all get regular water. So I say all that to say, you do you. You can use distilled water, but I think that they can be acclimated to regular water. You don't have to go through all that trouble. I guess, the proof is in the pudding. These guys don't look all that bad. They're not showing any signs of distress from using regular water. So, I guess another factor to that is, and I'm rambling here, but it could depend on where you live and, the type of water you're getting. Here in Georgia, I'm sure they add chemicals to the water, But I don't know that those levels are all that high because all of the plants are getting the same type of water. No distilling here. So, I think I've rambled on enough. He's shaking his head, y'all. Y'all tell me if I've talked too much. I just wanted to put a spin on these plants because I know that everybody is attracted to them, but everybody is struggling to grow them. I would suggest that if you want one, go ahead and get yourself one. Start out with something that's small. Don't buy a full-grown one. Get a baby one. Let it acclimate. Put it into a self-watering pot, and then tell me how that goes for you. So if you're growing these plants and you're doing something different, please tell me in the comments, because maybe that's the secret sauce to the two that aren't doing that well. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and comment. Talk to you guys real soon. Bye.